Welcome to another episode of Skinner's Outdoor Adventures, where we take our family and travel around and see what sights and sounds that we can find. On this episode, we're going back to the year 2015, where Jacob and I had the opportunity to go with his Grandpa Gary and his cousin Alex over the Mackinac Bridge and over the International Bridge at the Sault Ste Marie into Canada for a week-long fishing trip. One of our first stops takes us into Wawa, Ontario, the home of the famous Canadian goose. Of course, we have to stop by and get our picture taken with it. After roughly an 8-hour trip, we finally make it to our final destination in Chapleau, Ontario. This is where we'll pick up our boats and take them up into the chain of lakes to where the cabins are. The cabins are in a remote place, and the only way to get to them is by our boats. Here we're heading up into the chain of lakes towards our cabins. It's about a 15 to 20 minute ride in the boats to where we have to dock the boats by the cabin. But the trip's always worth it. There's always lots to see. This is our little cabin we'll be staying in. It's got all the cooking utensils and linens that we'll need to keep us comfortable for our week-long stay. Here, me and Gary are looking over the map of the chain of lakes and deciding where we can find the hotbed of fish with our two boats tomorrow morning when we get up. Here's the gang all ready for tomorrow's fishing trip. The boys got to sleep in the bunk beds in the back room, and they were all nice and tucked in for the evening. Man, we got to see some nice sunrise and sunsets while we're up there as well. What beautiful country. The next morning we're up and at it, heading up the chain of lakes and towards 7 Mile Rapids, where it will get us through into Henderson Lake and Darcy Lake. We hear there's a lot of good fishing up that way. Here we're just entering in 7 Mile Rapids. You gotta be tricky through here because there's lots of rocks and lots of boulders in our way. It's swift water. Heading this way, it's not too bad, but when you gotta come back up the other way, you gotta go full throttle with the boat just to get back up the rapids. Sorry about the fuzzy footage here, but with the boat and the rapids, it made the GoPro shake a little bit, so the pictures came out a little fuzzy through here. Say hi, Jacob. Here we're below the rapids and heading ourselves towards Henderson Lake. It's still kind of narrow through here, but as we make our way up into Henderson Lake, it opens up quite a bit more with some gorgeous rock islands and pine trees on them. One neat thing you get to see while you're up here is loons. We don't get to see many loons down by us, but man, there are loons everywhere up there. I think some of the coolest things we got to see up there was all the rock. It was astonishing how much rock was just around up there, around the lakes and in the channels. This was a neat spot to come to. This was as far up the chain of lakes that we could go. There was a lot more rapids in this area, and it was unsafe for us to take our boats through there. So as you can see, we actually did do some fishing while we were there. We did catch quite a few fish throughout the week. Some walleye, some perch, a lot of pike. It took us a while to figure out how to clean the pike. That's a trick of its own. But we were able to catch about everything we wanted to. Mostly used crawlers or worms, some twister tails, yellow or white worked really well. A couple of Rapellas worked pretty good too. So as you can see, we did okay. Nothing to write home about, no big sizes or anything, but it made it enjoyable for us nonetheless. I think one of the most important things is the boys had a good time while we were there. Oh yeah, by the way, we think Gary caught the biggest fish of the trip, this big old walleye. Here we are heading back towards our cabin, back up 7 Mile Rapids. You can see from this point from the water coming at you from Chapleau. It's full steam ahead to get back to the cabins. Here we are back at the fish cleaning hut that they provide for us at the cabins. We share this with 10 other cabin units on our little peninsula. It's a real nice facility with the steel table and wooden boards to cut on. It's even got a huge garbage disposal to dump all the bones and carcasses down into so they get ground up. After all that fishing and all that cleaning, it's time to make dinner and have some fresh fish from today's catch. Man, there's nothing better than good old fresh Canadian fish out of those cold waters. Well, that's about a wrap from Chapleau, Ontario. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Skinner's Outdoor Adventures. This was just a little snippet of actually what went on while we're there. Hey, remember, like and subscribe if you enjoy what you're seeing.